So without further ado, Cherie, tell us about finding your purpose in cybersecurity.
Thank you. My name is Cherie Burgett. I currently work with the Mining and Metals Isacc, which means that I work with many mining companies to get them to work together. And I work with governments and countries even sometimes, helping them with their overall strategy. So I get to work with a lot of moving parts, and I get to meet a lot of different people at various levels, whether in their cybersecurity career or within their own company and organization, their maturity level as they try and build their own cybersecurity programs. So here's just a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today, so you can decide whether or not you want to sit in these chairs for the next 20 minutes. Let's stop pretending that there's a defined career path into the cybersecurity world. I'm going to share a couple personal stories about how I got in. I'm going to talk about how you can customize your education to get to where you want to be and focus on your strengths and your interests. And we're going to talk about the gaps that are definitely apparent to everyone in the industry. If you spent any amount of time in cybersecurity, you know where those gaps are. You know where point A and point B do not connect. And we're going to talk about how to find a mentor, how to connect with the people that's going to help you grow as a person and introduce you and find opportunities for this career. So it all started at DEF CON. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had not worked for any employer for 15 years. I decided on a whim that I wanted to go to DEF CON. And the only way that I could afford to get there was by bus. And it was a 4-day Greyhound bus trip. And that bus trip was incredible. If you've ever taken the bus across country, you'll know how many people you meet at the back of the bus that will share with you their personal stories. And so as I'm telling them where I'm going, they're sharing with me where they're going. I got to meet people that were just getting released from prison that hadn't seen their families in 20 years. I got to meet a family that was traveling around the world from France that decided to take a short jaunt across Arizona. And so I got to meet all of these people along this journey, which finally led to DEF CON. So after I got off the bus, I went straight to DEF CON and got my badge and sat down in line. The very first person that I saw and met and talked to, I got to share these stories with. I got to tell them why I was there. And it wasn't like he gave me a job on the spot or you need to work in cybersecurity, but I got to make friends at this conference. And so for the next 3 years, I came back to DEF CON. I wasn't looking for a job. I was just kind of looking to be around what I felt were my peers. I wanted to be around smart, intelligent people. I wanted to have fun. I kind of wanted to start a little mischief when I could. So that was 6 DEF CONs ago. After the 3rd DEF CON, this first person that I met said, "Why aren't you working in cybersecurity yet? Why haven't you gotten off your butt and gotten a couple of certifications and got in?" And he was right. And so what is my background anyway? So my background originally was theology. And so that's why I thought that this, a reporter picked up on my story, and I think the headline makes some good clickbait. So theology is the study of ethics and personal beliefs and how those beliefs affect society. And so if you think about, you wouldn't think that that's the obvious crossover from, religious studies to cybersecurity. But if you start thinking about cybersecurity as more of a human problem, tracking organizations and groups, you start to see that maybe somebody with a broader worldview could perhaps draw some connections, whereas someone who is more technically focused would miss. So when you're creating your own path, you still need to get the right training. And that training may be the traditional, cybersecurity degree. It may be a various numbers of certifications, but what's going to help you fine-tune what you need to do has more to do with what your interest is, what your background is, what you're looking to do. And that's why getting a mentor and talking to people in the industry to find out which certifications are actually valued, what employers are looking for. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to be the outlier, because it's often those outliers that get the job. One program that I am currently working through is an interdisciplinary studies degree, and I'm working with the University of Maine in Augusta to develop a cyber intelligence program with concentration in psychology and political science. So I work for a nonprofit. An Isacc is a nonprofit organization. We don't have any goods to sell. Our services are member-driven. One of the things that I've learned is that most of the cybersecurity world is very profit-focused and profit-driven. And so your needs are whatever the vendor says you need, because they can sell that product to you. But oftentimes, things that make a difference, you can't sell. The things that make a difference are people, basic hygiene. Basic hygiene doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't, your vendor for the certain, for your system actually has, included in the cost of the license, patching. So when profits are off the table and funding is tight, we started our Isacc with 5 companies who kind of believed in a dream. And they brought me on board and said, okay, this is our dream, let's make it happen. But what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to ask for government funding, because we wanted to maintain control of where we went. And so funding was definitely tight. And this sort of ended up with a journey for us to define what we could do as a small organization that would make a big impact. Things that we focus on are human factor security, both adversaries and defenses. So I like to profile groups and organizations, but I also like to identify what's going on within an organization that leads to some of these pitfalls. I help companies and yes, even some countries develop a cybersecurity strategy, because there is very little support in this industry on developing a strategy. That is the CISO's role, but nobody really has figured out how to do that effectively yet. Getting some CISOs with experience and discussing it is a way that we can start creating what these best practices should be. And innovation support. When I work in an industry that is on the cusp of digital innovation, and cybersecurity is often seen as like an afterthought. They give you a shiny new product, now how do you secure it? And so what we've been promoting is secure by design. We've been promoting bringing your cybersecurity guys to the table during the as early as possible in the developmental stages, so that we can talk about security and talk about how we can support them through the innovation process. So where do you fit? Your challenge is to think about cybersecurity differently. Everyone has an idea of what cybersecurity is, and a lot of people think that it is SOC analyst, pen tester. But cybersecurity actually involves so much more. We are not talking about, war games where it's kid versus kid. We're talking about businesses versus business, corporate versus corporate. The bad guys are big corporations with office buildings, and they have planning, and they do their own tabletop exercises. They have a sales force that are fully trained to help their people become better social engineers. So we're thinking about cybersecurity wrong. We need to have a much bigger overview in order to support it. And definitely the most important thing that I want you guys to get from this is that you need to network with people. The only way that you can get into this industry is not by following some predefined path. That path doesn't exist, and we're giving each other terrible advice about it. We have very well-intentioned people who are cybersecurity professionals that says, if you do A, B, and C, you'll get to D. And that's not the case. And I'm not sure where I was on time.
We have some time for some questions. So can you explain a little bit more about the Mining Council?
Okay.
What it does, because I was really fascinated with sort of the purpose,
So,
because everyone else thinks about services industries, but they don't talk about sort of manufacturing or other things outside of, and how did you get that job?
Okay, so I work for an organization that, Mining and Metals was actually kind of late to the party as far as cybersecurity, because they were largely an ignored field. And so no one was really after them. Nobody attacked them. They didn't get hit with anything. And so they didn't really invest very much into cybersecurity until a few years ago.
Why was that?
And so a few years ago, they were hit by a financially motivated threat actor that hit a series of mining companies. And so these mining companies decided that they needed to get together and work together in order to combat this, because the problem was bigger than any one company should be defending against. And so,
You're talking about natural resources being attacked.
yes, absolutely. Natural resources. Part of mining and metals is also oil and gas. And critical manufacturing is a part of that as well. But a lot of these weren't hit until everyone was getting hit. And so as cybersecurity was cyber threats were ramping up, they were also at the same time creating an environment where they were opening the doors, per se, because of digital innovation. They were connecting more to the smart grid. They're connecting more, they're doing things more remotely. And so this organization sort of came in right at the perfect time for these guys to decide, we're gonna solve this, we're gonna solve it together, we're gonna collaborate, and we're gonna work on these projects, we're gonna conduct the research necessary to do it.
So how did you get that?
How did I get the job? Well, after a few series of DEF CONs, I went home and I studied. I got certifications. I enrolled in college classes. But the people that I knew, that I met at DEF CON, knew my background, knew what I did, and they decided, oh, you're ready now. You're ready to help us put this organization together. And they wanted me because I had a different background.
Any questions for Cherie?
Just the mentoring aspect of that, there's obviously people in this room, and this great here, but there we go. Yeah, just on the mentoring concept. I mean, how would you recommend someone who's, we know about students, they've got professors, they've got internships, someone who maybe like your kind of age, our age. How do I go off and find someone to sort of say, if I was brand new to this industry and I was coming to DEF CON or B-Sides for the first time, who do I turn to?
So absolutely, and I think cybersecurity is a perfect second career. I believe that you have to come to these types of events and you have to talk to people. You have to, and I'm willing, I've actually put myself out there as well, and I know other people who have gotten into the industry in a similar fashion where they were sort of mentored in, have returned the favor by doing it for others.
Iced coffee, cream, sugar.
Oh my God.
Not whiskey. More sugar in case I didn't do it right.
You did it perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
So for those
That's a reward for ending 10 minutes early.
I am very brief.
So for those of you who don't know, when you submit a talk to any B-Sides Las Vegas, there is a question in the proposal that you submit, outrageous request. And a lot of times, whoops! David? Don't worry.
Yeah. He brought me napkins.
So outrageous request. If you saw Chris Roberts this morning, he wanted whiskey spelled with no E and puppies. And so they brought him a bottle of Canadian sherry whiskey with no E and bombarded him with puppy stuffed animals. So we will try to get you another one.
Oh, it's okay.
And questions for Cherie. So we have a question in the back here.
Well, now my question is, was that your outrageous request to drop a cup of coffee in front of everyone?
So there's this thing. I get to travel all over the world. And there's sort of a tradition. I have two traditions. One of them is I want to go to a McDonald's in every country so I can order off whatever their crazy menu is. And the other one is I want an iced coffee. And they never have it.
Okay. So my original question was, are you still coming to DEF CON by bus or have you upgraded to airplane?
So I have upgraded. That was a one-time experience, but I actually wouldn't have had it any other way, and I'm not sure that my experience would have been as good had I not had the 4 days of social engineering practice. It was a good warm-up.
Any other questions for Cherie?
Let's go, Brady. Where did you come from?
Oh, so that was from Alabama. I no longer live in Alabama.
That is a long road trip. Long road trip. Hey, how about a round of applause for